What's up YouTube, JP here. Welcome back to the channel. So last video you guys watched was the CLA-250 oil change. So some more maintenance videos for you guys. So today we're going to do front brakes, including Zimmerman drilled rotors and factory Mercedes pads. We're going to do the front brakes on this today. We'll do a step-by-step for you guys so you know what you're doing, and we'll get going. Alright, so the first step on removing your front brakes is going to be go ahead and remove your front wheels. Something to note, some wheels come with a factory wheel lock key, usually in your glove box. So you want to take that off. Another note on Mercedes vehicles is they do not use wheel studs, they use wheel bolts. So when you get down to your very last bolt, you want to be very careful when removing it, because the wheel will just fall off, as there's nothing actually holding the wheel to the hub. So if you have two people, you can have somebody help you support. Go ahead and pull it off. Beefcake! And just for you guys as a reference, my wife's vehicle, the pads are actually new. We're still going to change them because her rotors are very warped. We get a violent vibration pressing the brakes at high speeds, so we're just going to change the pads and the rotor. So that's why you'll see that our pads are still good, but we're going to go ahead and toss them. We will also be replacing the brake pad sensor with a factory Mercedes brake pad sensor. So you're going to remove your two caliper bolts, 13mm bolts here, and then one here, and the one she's removing.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, once you get your bolts loose and taken out, you may need to hold this lock nut here that's going to turn on you. You'll go ahead and put a screwdriver in between the pad and the caliper. You'll pry it out towards the car, or away from the car, and that'll give you enough for the caliper to be loose and get it off. Alright, so caliper's up. Get yourself a bungee. You can use a wire or coat hanger or whatever. Tie it off out of the way so it's not hanging on the brake line. Now this is what's called your caliper bracket. You're going to remove the two inner bolts to get this caliper bracket off. If you'd like, you can remove the pads now. I'm going to remove the pads after the fact, but that's the next step. So your two bolts here are going to be an inverted torque. Hopefully you guys have the socket. If not, run down to Harbor Freight or somewhere to go get one. This one is a E18 for these two bolts here. There's a bracket with pads in it. So this is the only part that sometimes likes to round off and get stuck. This is holding your rotor. It is a Torx, but you're going to want to use a sprung torque punch. Looks something like this. If you don't have one, they do sell them at like Harbor Freight, Snap-on, Max Tools, all those. But you can get away with doing it sometimes if they're not too rusty with just a wrench and a Torx, but be very careful. Yep, go ahead and unscrew it.
Oh.
Just by hand. Yes, you are awesome. You'll put your locking screw back in. What I like to do is once you have the screw semi-tight, put a lug nut in and then tighten this down just to verify that all your bolts are lined up. You can just take the lug nut back out. Alright you guys, so we're going to go ahead and you're going to want to lube all of your brake slides when you're doing the brake job. You know, top and bottom. You can use all different, you can use wheel grease if that's all you have. I actually have brake assembly glue, basically, your goo. Just get on there, around, slide it back in. This will help brakes from sticking ever, also keep you from getting warped rotors. So that should be like that. You can use this on the back of the pads if you need to. You can use it on all the components. Alright, so really self-explanatory. You'll just pull the pads out. They are spring-loaded, so when you set them back in, you see the new ones are already in, you'll want to set the spring side in first, and then you just kind of twist them in place. So don't forget, on your driver's side caliper inner pad is where your sensor goes for your pad wear sensor. So again, I got all this from FCP Euro. It comes with all the parts. So really simple setup here. This goes in to that hole in the pad and locks itself in as so. Alright you guys, so the next thing is you have two ways of bleeding your brakes. So for this, because we didn't have very worn out pads to begin with, the caliper's not going to need to be pressed in very much. So what I do is I use an old pad, grab your brake caliper tool, whatever kind you have. You want to make sure you remove the cap on the brake master cylinder under the engine compartment there where you add your brake fluid, so that way nothing builds back pressure. So with the cap off, it allows the fluid, if you go slowly, allows the fluid to return into the master cylinder. And you're just going to slowly compress this until that is all the way flush as it is there.
So make sure you put Loctite back on the caliper bracket bolts.
So once you have your caliper bracket on, don't forget to tighten down your inverted Torx. These go pretty tight. Okay, and you're going to go ahead and set your caliper down on the caliper bracket. You're going to get your sensor plugged in here. Make sure the wire doesn't get pinched when you put the bracket up. The FCP Euro kit comes with brand new caliper bolts with Loctite pre-assembled. So we'll go ahead and get those tightened down. And there you guys go. Go ahead and just throw your wheel back on, torque it down to whatever your torque specs are, and that is a wrap on your front brakes.